Welcome to Bite Size Rando. My name is DDRKirby, and today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff. Welcome everyone to this episode of Boots Camp, presented by the Go Mode podcast. Like I said, my name is DDRKirby. If you're wondering about the name of today's lesson, Big Bowl of Bite Size Rando, it's called that because I curate a set of YouTube videos, which I can show right here, called Bite Size Rando. So I have about 33 videos so far, and these are usually shorter 5-minute or 10-minute clips about all sorts of different strats and room timings and timing comparisons. For example, I have a setup for Lambo 2 Silvers. So if you're interested in just watching these bite-sized videos, you can head over to this playlist, and I'll post a link in the chat for that. But unless there's anything else, we're going to get right into it because I've got a lot to cover. And we're going to start by talking about Specky Clip. So what is Specky Clip? This is actually a pretty recent discovery or glitch that was discovered. This is relevant in Swamp Palace, specifically in this room. And oh my gosh, my game's like, oh, that's right, I reduced my speed. All right, Specky Clip is a glitch that allows you to clip through this rail right here in Swamp Palace. So we're going to use the hookshot and a bomb, and you're going to be able to clip through right here. Now, something that's really important about Specky Clip is that it actually allows you, since it allows you to bypass this key door, it allows you to also bypass the hammer requirement in Swamp Palace, because, of course, this is the only room in Swamp Palace where the hammer is required to push down these pegs. So normally, you'd have to go and push this lever and watch this really long cutscene before you can proceed to the next room by swimming in the water. But if you do the Specky Clip trick, you won't have to do any of that. That means you won't have to have the hammer in order to full clear the rest of Swamp Palace. Now, of course, this has logical implications. It means you won't find the hammer in the rest of Swamp Palace, of course, but also keep that in mind that if you find, for example, the book in the rest of Swamp Palace, then any locations that the book will unlock will not be able to lead to your hammer. So be sure you keep track of that if you're doing this as a sequence break. Alright, now I do have some prepared footage on exactly how we're going to execute the Specky Clip, so I'm going to switch to that. So you're going to go to this room. Let me zoom in here. The first thing to remember that is important is usually you're going to want to skip this key unless you're going through Swamp Palace a second time. And I do have a bunch of timing comparisons to like illustrate why, but just remember that if this is your first time through Swamp Palace, you are going to go ahead and skip going through that door over there. So you're not going to go through this door, and you're not going to get this key underneath this pot. And that is because this key is actually the slowest key in Swamp Palace to collect, right? So remember to skip this key. You're going to climb up these stairs here, and you're going to push flush against this right wall. And you're going to turn downward, and you're going to lay a bomb. Now you're going to move all the way to the left, and you're going to slash and hold out your sword. Now you have to time this correctly, and a setup that I found that works is to kind of hold left against this railing and tink your sword 7 times. You can, of course, also just wait until the bomb flashes and time it yourself, but I choose to do this 7 tink setup. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're going to hold right to go into the bomb explosion. During the bomb explosion knockback, you're going to let go of your D-pad, don't press anything, and then you're going to quick stop to the hookshot, and then you're going to hookshot to this statue, and that is going to be how to perform this clip. And then you're going to walk through this railing by going down or down left. Okay? I'm going to show that one more time. Just for good measure. So you're going to lay the bomb here, flush with the right wall, go left here, flash out your sword, tink 7 times, or just wait if you have good timing. Go into the bomb explosion. It's important also that this is one continual movement, so you don't go right just a little bit and then right again. You're going to hold right the whole way until you are exploded by the bomb. You're going to let go of your D-pad, and then you're going to quick swap and hookshot to this statue. Okay? Now, there are some things to watch out for, and I'll show what happens when this goes wrong. So one thing you want to watch out for is moving into this bomb too early. So that was an example of moving too early. And of course, you also don't want to go too late because then you won't be hit by the bomb knockback at all. Now, this is the thing that I talked about a little bit earlier to watch out for, which is if you move right just a little bit and then move again, your subpixel alignment is actually going to get messed up. And you'll see that when I do this, the glitch just won't work. So I'm going to be in the wrong position because my subpixel alignment was off. So make sure that when you move right, it's one continuous movement, not stopping halfway. And obviously don't hop off this ledge because that's really bad. If one other note I want to note is in the previous room there are 2 extra bombs underneath these 2 circled pots in case you're out of bombs for some reason and you need some extra bombs to do this trick. So you can lift these 2 pots and there's some extra bombs. And of course in this pot over here, that is where the small key is, so you're going to be lifting that one anyways. One other thing, if you are familiar with a lot of bomb setups and bomb jumps, you'll know that some bomb jumps are affected by collecting drops in midair. I will note that for this particular bomb trick, I did not find any problems when collecting drops from these enemies in midair, so you can feel free to collect any of them, and you won't have any problems. Any questions about how to execute the Specky clip so far? Okay, I'm not seeing anything from chat, so... Alright, someone pointed out that the slot 0 enemy is actually the floodgate switch, so it makes sense that collecting drops won't affect anything. Okay, before I explain how the Specky clip affects the routing implications for Swamp Palace, I'm actually going to hop over to explaining another trick, which is called Diver Down. This is going to apply in 2 different areas in Swamp Palace. One of them is this screen here. So normally, to access these chests here, you would have to go and lift this pot over here, and then push the statue over this switch, and that's really slow. So we have a time-saving trick. So you'd go back here, and then you'd pull the water lever and drain this water. Well, we have a time-saving trick, and you can do it with either the Cane of Samaria or using bombs, and it's going to allow you to kind of clip through this rail and hop into kind of this weird state where I'm kind of standing on the water except able to interact with these flooded... oh, sorry. So I forgot to switch screens. Thank you. Yeah, so Diver Down is a trick that you do in this room where you are going to use the Cane of Samaria or bombs. There's 2 different setups that I'll show. And you're going to use that to kind of clip in here and jump into this weird state where you're kind of walking on the water, except you can still interact with these chests that are underneath the water, okay? This is also going to be used sometimes when you're doing the checks in left side swamp, so that is here. So that Diver Down also allows you to flood the key underneath this pot. So there's a small key underneath this pot here, and normally you'd have to go get that key first before pushing this lever. If you do the Diver Down trick, you can actually flood this pot first, and then there's like a delayed bomb setup that I'll explain. After doing that delayed bomb setup, you can go and do the Diver Down trick here. I'll try to get it using a bomb setup this time, just to illustrate that. And you'll be able to clip into here, into this state again, and then you'll be able to get this small key, even though it's kind of sitting under the water, okay? So let's switch over to the actual detailed step-by-step explanations of how to do this glitch. So I'm going to first cover the Samaria setup. Now, I will note, before we get into this, there are a few different setups for Diver Down. I'm going to teach the what I call the splash setup today. The reason for that is because it's a little bit easier to teach. It's consistent between Samaria and bombs. There are some other setups that, if I have extra time, I might also go over, but I'm going to stick with this one for now. All right. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to push flush against this rail. So you make sure you're as far up as you can and hitting this rail. Then you're going to walk straight left until about here. So you're going to be about roughly lined up with these stairs. You're going to turn right. It's important that you don't move up or down. You turn just straight right, and you're going to lay a Samaria block. So you see that it's kind of positioned midway in this railing. You're going to walk straight up so that you splash into the water. And then in midair, you're going to switch so that you're holding down right on the control pad, or on the D-pad. After splashing, but before coming out of the water, you're going to switch so that instead of holding down and right, you're going to be holding only right. And you should splash out facing right, and you'll be here. Then you're going to slash your sword and you're going to hold your sword out and start holding up and to the right. Okay. There is an optimal thing that you can go for, which is to release your sword just before it's fully charged. This will skip the sword's spin animation. I'll cover that in detail later. And then you just press up or upright to jump into the water. Okay, and then you can open your chests and then move on and continue to the next room. And this is the same thing, but showing it for left side swamp. It's the exact same setup. So I just showed it full speed, so I'm going to show that full speed one more time. Turn, lay the Mario block, do the splash, and swing your sword, and hold it out, and then jump on the rail. Okay? Some additional notes about this. So exactly where to lay the Mario block, there are a range of X positions, so it is fairly lenient. So you'll see the link on the left is at the leftmost position that you can lay it, and the link on the right is at the rightmost position. And so your block can be from here to here. So it's a pretty forgiving range, but ideally, as I said, you kind of want to have your block kind of midway lined up with this rail. And I'll show that this is kind of the middle position that you want to aim for. I find that it's very easy to accidentally, when you're turning from left to right, to accidentally get a down or an up input, which is going to mess up your pixel alignment and cause the trick to fail. So if you've ever had this happen where you think you did the trick right, but then for some reason you couldn't clip through, watch out and make sure that you didn't make that mistake and do an accidental up or down input. This is, in my experience, the most common way that I personally fail this trick. So be sure to have a clean left and right movement. Something else to look out for is if you're still facing downward when you splash out of the water, it means that you didn't transition from down and right to right fast enough. So to remember from back before when I showed the trick correctly, first you're going to hold down and right while you're splashing into the water. And then before you splash out of the water, you're going to switch to holding straight right. And if you didn't switch in time, if you did switch in time, you'll see that Link is kind of facing to the right as Link splashes up. Let me find that. Do it again. So while Link is splashing out of the water, you'll see that Link is facing to the right. Whereas if you didn't do it correctly, let me find that again. Then Link will be facing down. So if this happens to you, you'll know that you switched directions a little bit too late. And then the clip will not work. Another thing to look out for is if you just swim to the right here, that means you transitioned too early. So you transitioned to straight right before you even landed in the water, okay? So you want to aim for transitioning from down right to right in exactly between the two splashes, basically, right? And that window is about 0.4 seconds in length. So it is a little bit lenient if you just practice it, right? So I'm going to show this in a little bit slower speed so that you can get used to the timing. So you're going to splash here and then switch directions and then unsplash, okay? Now, if you're going for this sword release at the end here, where you stop holding your sword out, that is a 10-frame window, so it is a little bit tighter. It's up to you whether you want to go for this or not. The easier strat is to just hold your sword the entire time, so you'll still have your sword held out. Now, you could just release your sword and spin, but spinning is a little bit slow and that animation takes a lot of time. So in order to make it a little bit faster, what you can do is you can move to this pot and then pick up the pot before releasing the B button. And that way, we can use picking up the pot to cancel your spin animation. That will be a little bit faster than doing the spin, okay? And you can go ahead and collect your chests. Now, it is important to note that if you go for your sword release and you let go of your sword too early, you won't be all the way to the right in this rail, so you won't be able to jump. So if this happens to you, it's okay. All you have to do is slash and hold out your sword again. And then this time, you'll be able to go all the way, okay? Now, it is worth noting that if you do this, it is still just as fast as going ahead and lifting this pot. So, you know, if you go for this, it is not very punishing if you miss it and have to slash again. And it looks like there's a comment from chat that using the lamp will also release your sword. So if you don't want to lift this pot, you can also just use the lamp. Thank you for chiming in. Any questions on this Samaria setup? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to the bomb setup. There are, again, different bomb setups. I'm going to use the one that looks pretty much the same as this one. The only difference is you're going to have to find a specific bomb lineup, and I'm going to cover how to find this lineup in a little bit. You're going to lay the bomb to the left. Now you're going to do the same splash trick. So you're going to do the same holding down right, switching to right, and then splashing out as Link is facing to the right. Now you're going to either push or tap right against this rail, so you want to make sure you're flush against this rail. And then you're going to wait for the bomb to explode, and it's going to send you to clip into this rail. Optimally, you'll want to hold right briefly as your bomb stun ends, as that will clip you a few pixels to the left. And then you're just going to switch to up or upright to jump just as before. So really, it's not that much different than the Mario setup. The main tricky part is actually finding the bomb lineup, so we're going to go over that right now. So the Y position, so your vertical coordinate, is pixel precise for this bomb lineup, and there's a few ways to look for this. One way is there will be exactly one pixel of kind of this like brownish color between the bottom of your shadow and this dark horizontal line here. And this should be consistent no matter what sprite you're using, because the shadows of your sprite will always be consistent. So this is a nice way to look for it. Another lineup that you can use is that the outline of Link's hat is just touching this horizontal line up here. But whatever vertical cue you use, make sure you remember that so you can look for it as you're trying to execute this glitch. Now, it is worth noting that if you're flush against the rail, you will be in this position. So you'll see that this Link on the right is flush to as north as you can go while you're in line with this rail. Now, you'll see that the position that you need to be in is exactly 2 pixels up from being flush with the rail, and that is 1 frame of walking north with your sword not held out, right? So one way that you can do this is to use a sword buffer and move 1 frame north, and that will put you in the correct vertical position. As far as the horizontal leeway, there's actually 8 pixels of horizontal leeway, so the X position, the horizontal position, is actually relatively lenient. So you can be anywhere between this leftmost position here and this rightmost position here. And kind of the middle position is going to be here, so I'm going to, I usually use this visual cue of this kind of darker brown rectangle here. You kind of want that to be centered on Link's shadow, or whatever your character sprite that you're using. Okay, so that's usually what I aim for, and of course, if you're a little bit off, it's okay. Another one you can use is that Link's shadow is basically sandwiched or lined up between these 2 kind of U-shaped patterns on the floor here. Okay. So as I said, how you can set this up is you could sword buffer up 1 frame if you'd like. You can also use a pause buffer, or you can use a select buffer, or you can just try and tap up for 1 frame, or you can also just hold your sword out and try to get into the right position, whatever works for you. But however you do it, try to get into the right vertical position, and then face left, check your position. You'll see that it doesn't need to be perfect. So in this example, I'm a little bit more to the right than usual. So you'll see that my shadow is offset from this kind of dark brown rectangle, but it's still okay because, as I said, there's 8 pixels of horizontal leeway. So even though I'm a little bit off, I'll lay the bomb, do the splash setup, and then I'll still be able to hop in. Okay. We're going to go over the same thing, but for the left side swamp case. This is going to be the same basic idea. So you're going to line up for the bomb, do the splash setup, and then get clipped into the rail and jump. So as I said, same vertical position lineup. But unfortunately, this one, the horizontal leeway is a little bit tighter. There's only 5 pixels that work. So this is the leftmost X position that works. And this is going to be the rightmost X position that works. So the middle position kind of looks like this. And the visual cue that I like to use is the left edge of this like second U. That's kind of where I try to center my shadow on, okay? But of course, again, you can find whatever kind of visual cue that works for you. For example, you can also look for these 2 kind of bright rectangles and kind of sandwich your shadow between these 2 rectangles on the left and right of Link. That works too. You'll also notice there's 1 pixel of space between your shield and this line, although that might not be good to rely on because you can come in here without a shield sometimes. So whatever lineup works for you. And as was mentioned before, picking up drops in midair is okay for this as well. Okay, now that we've talked about Diver Down, unless there's any questions, we're going to move on to the delayed bomb trigger. So this is a trick that I showed before, where you are going to push this switch. You're going to wait for this cutscene to complete, and then you can lay a bomb next to this crystal switch. And after you're doing this, after laying the bomb, you're going to wait for the bomb to start exploding. So you're going to wait until you actually see the explosion, and then you're going to transition to the door during the explosion. And what's going to happen is the switch is not going to trigger yet, even though you heard the explosion go off. Then afterwards, you're going to do your diver down setup. And then you're going to go through this door, and then there's going to be a delayed trigger, and the switch is going to hit, and it's going to cause these crystal pegs to pop up. And that is going to allow you, of course, to collect both drops in Left Side Swamp, so you will definitely want to have those crystal pegs set to that state. Now, some additional notes on this. This is going to show the transition window for transitioning through this door after laying the bomb, and it is a pretty generous window. On the left, I'm going to show the earliest that you can go through the door, and on the right, I'm going to show the latest you can go through the door. I'll show that one more time, so you can actually go through pretty early, just as the bomb is starting to explode. If you go and get this transition, it's still okay, and even on the right side, if you wait until the bomb explosion is almost just done, it still works. So you should be able to get this by just eyeballing it without any problems. Now, it was mentioned in chat that optimally you can actually lay the bomb before the cutscene starts, or even before you finish the push of this lever, and that is going to save some time. We used to not do this because it used to lag the game, but we do play on fast ROM now, so it doesn't do that anymore. The one thing that you should note when you're trying this is watch out for this moving spike, because if it gets in your way and you don't make it into the door on time, then you're going to have to do the trick again, and that's going to waste a lot of time. But optimally, you can lay the bomb much earlier if you want to save some frames. Okay? Are there any questions about any of this tech before I go into how to route Swamp Palace? Let me unzoom in with the addition of these tricks. Alright, we're going to get into routing Swamp Palace. I have a whole video on my YouTube channel about how to do this, and why we're doing this, but basically the rationale is Specky Clip allows us to skip opening this door, and there's 4 different small keys in Swamp Palace. So there's one in the main hub here, there's one in this room right before Argus, there's one on left side Swamp here, and there's one right above the room where we did Specky Clip, okay? And we get to skip exactly one of these keys because we did not have to open this small key door. Now, this key in above the Specky Clip room costs 7 seconds to get. This main hub key costs 4 seconds to get. This diver down key costs you 3 seconds to get. And this Phelps Way key over here costs 4.5 seconds to get. And you'll just have to trust me on these timings or watch my video. Therefore, you always want to try and skip this key if possible, since it's the slowest one to get. So that's why we skip this the first time through. So I'm going to provide 2 different routing options through Swamp Palace. Routing option 1 is you're going to do left side swamp during your first trip through the dungeon. So you're going to do this, you're going to skip that key, you're going to do your Specky Clip, now you're going to grab the main hub key. Now, it's up to you, but usually I see a lot of people go south first here to go get the compass chest, which is down south in this place. This can give you more information about what is potentially on left side. If you, for example, get the map or the compass down here, then it can tell you that there's at least one item on left side swamp. If you choose to skip that, it is actually going to save you a little bit more time if you take this north route instead. If you take this north route, you can do left side swamp first, and then you can go back and get the compass chest a little bit later. That is going to be slightly more optimal pathing, but again, you're going to have less information as you make this left side swamp decision. So now you're going to hit the switch, you're going to push this lever, you're going to do the delayed bomb trigger that we saw before, you're going to do your diver down trick, and now you're going to grab this key, and then proceed to check left side. You're going to go back here, and if you didn't get compass chest, you can do that now, and then you're going to go back and spend your diver down key that you got on the left side, and you're going to finish the rest of the dungeon. Okay, so this is kind of routing option number 1 if you want to try and do left side your first time through the dungeon. Now, routing option number 2 for doing Swamp Palace is you're going to skip it during your first trip through the dungeon. Okay, so this might be because, for example, you're 1 item away from go mode, and you want to get to the back first, and you're going to prioritize checking those checks because left side swamp is slow. It could also be because you might just want to skip left side swamp altogether, or maybe you just want information before making that decision. So in this case, after doing your spiky clip and getting the main hub key, you are going to go south for the compass chest, of course, and then without doing left side, you're going to go all the way to the back of the dungeon. Okay, so you're going to spend your main hub key here. Now, after you finish the rest of the dungeon, and after you beat Argus, you can make a call on whether you want to go back in for left side swamp and potentially maybe the big chest, because remember, the big key can maybe be on Argus, and you might have to go back in for that as well. So if you decide to go back in, here's what you're going to do. This time, you're actually going to go and collect this Specky Clip key, because you want an extra key to do left side swamp. So this time, you're actually going to go and collect this key. You're going to do Specky Clip again. You're going to make sure that you do not touch this door. You need to keep your key on hand. Then in the main hub, you're going to go to left side swamp, and you're going to spend that key that you just got. And this time, you're actually not going to do the diver down trick, okay? You're just going to push the lever, and you're going to slash it on the way out, okay? Don't forget to hit the switch on the way out. I've definitely forgotten to do this before, and it's really sad. So make sure you hit the switch on the way out. Then you're going to go out and around this way. This is actually faster than doing the diver down, and if you want the timings, you can watch my video. There is a special trick that you can do to clip through this pot. I'm not going to cover that, but it does save some time. Okay, and then you're going to go here, and you're going to check left side, and hopefully get your progression. Now, some timing numbers just to help you make this decision. This does not account for, weird situations like the big chest or the big key being on Argus or map and compass on the left side. But if you do left side swamp the first time through, you'll see that you will save, maybe around 17 seconds or 18 seconds or so, as opposed to coming through and doing it the second time through. Now, whether that's actually worth it and which one of these routes you want to choose is a very large topic of discussion, and I will highly recommend you to talk to your mentor about that decision. Any questions about any of Swamp Palace stuff before we move on? All right. We're going to move on to talking about bomb jumps. So, I'm going to move to the other scene. So when we're doing a bomb jumps, I'm going to go over to Skullwoods now, because that is an easy bomb jump to show. When we're doing bomb jumps, a lot of times you'll see people set them up by using a spin slash setup, right? So there's some sort of magic trickery where you let go of the spin slash and it automatically makes this bomb jump work or something. I'm here to demystify that and explain to you exactly what's going on when people do this spin and why you should do it too if you want to get consistent. Let's hop over to the video. So in order to talk about this, I first have to talk about how a pit is structured. So when you look at a pit, there's actually 3 different zones. There's the solid ground over here in the blue. That's just, normal ground that you're standing on. There's the red zone, the fall zone. That's what you actually fall into. And then there's this particular yellow zone called, which I'm going to call the slip zone. That's in between the two. Okay, so we'll be talking about why that's important. So while you're in this special yellow slip zone, if you don't do anything, Link is automatically going to start sliding towards going into the pit. Okay, and this slip zone is exactly 7 pixels wide, okay? So if you don't do anything, you're going to fall into the pit 8 frames or 7 or 8 frames after you enter this slip zone. It is worth noting that if you're moving sideways or diagonally, you will actually move a little bit slower into the pit. So this will take you double the amount of time, so 15 or 16 frames instead of 7 or 8. And that will be a little bit relevant later. Now, you can also choose to move back out of the slip zone, back towards solid ground, and if you do that, Link is going to move at a rate of 0.5 pixels per frame, or 0.25 pixels per frame if you're moving diagonally. So same thing, you're going to move slower if you're moving diagonally or sideways. It's important to note that while you're in this 7 pixel range, there's a lot of things that you actually can't do. You can't slash your sword. You also can't release a sword spin, you can't use Y items, and you can't start any dashes. So basically the only thing you can do is move either towards the pit or out of the pit, okay? So here I'm going to show exactly where the slip zone is relative to Link's sprite. So this is the start of that 7 pixel slip zone. Sorry about that, I guess I was a little bit too zoomed in. Gonna show that again. technical issues. I apologize for that. All right, so here's the start of the slip zone where Link is just hitting that 7-pixel window. And here's the end of the slip zone where Link is about to fall into the pit, right? So that's 7 pixels worth. Okay. Here's the same thing, but moving diagonally, so it's going to take twice as long. So start of slip zone here and end of slip zone here, and it may seem like a short window, but you can actually notice it. All right. So what's going to happen with this whole spin slash setup? You're going to start by holding your sword out away from the pit on the blue area on solid ground, right? Then you're going to move up or diagonally up to enter this yellow slip zone, right? So it's this 7-pixel slip zone. You're going to release the B button while you're in the slip zone. And remember, your spin slash can't be activated in the yellow section, so you should not spin right away when you release B here. Next, you're going to move downward again until you reach this blue section, okay? And once that happens, your spin slash is automatically going to trigger because this is the first frame that you are able to do the spin slash, because remember, we can't spin slash in this yellow zone. During your spin, you're going to let go of the D-pad entirely. And that will put you on the very furthest pixel of this blue area. So you'll be right up next to the slip zone, and that is the correct position for doing the bomb jump. So here's what it looks like in real time. Do the spin and then lay the bomb. You'll see that in this setup, I am moving a little bit into the slip zone, and then moving back and letting my spin slash activate before laying the bomb. Here's the same thing at quarter speed. You'll see that I actually move a little bit past into the slip zone and then activate my spin. Now, as I noted before, the timing window is actually increased if you move diagonally. So if you're having trouble with this 7 to 8 frame window, one strategy you can use is to move diagonally into the pit. This is going to be a more complicated movement, but it does lengthen the timing window by 2x. Okay. So here's the same thing at quarter speed, move diagonally into the slip zone and then move out and unspin and do the spin slash. Okay, so if you're having trouble with that frame window, you can maybe try that. It is worth noting that you do actually need to be moving diagonally here. So you can't just rub up against a wall and then hold diagonally into the wall. You need to actually be doing a true diagonal movement in order for this timing window to be lengthened. Now, I've seen people struggle with practicing this spin slash setup, and the reason why it can be tricky to practice is because sometimes it's hard to know whether you did it right. So I can go and try and do my spin slash, and I can't really tell if I did it right. I know that I did a spin, but how can I tell if I'm on the right pixel? Of course, you can memorize the pixel setup, but sometimes it's hard to tell when you're practicing exactly if you're doing it right or not. If you're really good at this, you can tell when Link enters the slip zone or not. But I have a proposed method for practicing this that I'm going to propose to you guys, and I've never seen anyone try this, so I'm going to throw it out here, and you guys can tell me whether it actually works correctly or not. So what you're going to do is you're going to equip a Y item. I'm going to recommend the bug net, but if you want to use the hammer or the bow or something, that is totally fine too. I'm going to recommend the bug net here. You're going to move into the slip zone with your sword held out down, and you're going to press Y while you're in the slip zone. Then you're going to go back onto solid ground. And that's basically the exercise. So you see that I'm pressing Y and inside the slip zone, and you can practice moving diagonally or just vertically. And the goal here is to press Y without using the bug net, and also without falling into the pit. So if you fall into the pit, that means you went too far. You went past that 7 pixels and you went into the fall zone. So you went too far. So next time, if you make that mistake, try to move a little bit less far. And if you use the bug net, that means you were not in the slip zone when you press Y. Because remember, when you're in the slip zone, you can't activate Y items. So if this happens to you, that means you were not in the slip zone correctly when you press Y. So try to get a little bit further into the slip zone, or do your Y press a little bit differently. Now, once you have that timing down, where you're doing this and tapping Y, and you have this timing down for tapping Y and moving into the slip zone without falling, then you can graduate to doing the actual bomb jump setup. And the way to do that is to do the exact same thing, except instead of pressing Y, you're going to release B for your sword spin, and it's going to be the exact same timing. Okay? So try that, see if that helps you, and if that practice method works for you, go ahead and report back to me. I've never seen anyone do this before, but hopefully it can help you with practicing these bomb jump setups. Any questions about bomb jumps or falling into pits? All right, we're moving right along. Next thing we're going to talk about is Harapot. So Harapot is a trick that's been around for a while. It is something that has had about as many more iterations than I can count. There are like 5 million different ways to do Harapot, and I feel like in the year 2040 we'll find a setup for Harapot where you just like press a button and then press another button, and then you'll just automatically clip into this fountain. So what Harapot is in Tower Hera, it lets you clip into this fountain here. Well, of course, you're going to open this chest first. And then you're going to need at least one bomb, and you're also going to need the hook shot. And the setup is going to look like this. You're going to place a bomb in a specific place. You're going to move into the bomb explosion, and then you're going to clip into this fountain here. And what that's going to let you do is going to let you skip a large portion of the climb up into the dungeon. Okay, and then you'll end up here, and you'll be right next to Moldorm, and of course, if you want, you can fall down in this hole here to collect this chest here, and you can also, of course, collect the item in the big chest, assuming that you have the big key, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and switch to looking at the actual setup. We're going to talk about the bread pot setup, called this because it was popularized by a runner called Breadcoon. So what's going to happen is you're going to push flush against this topmost peg. So you're going to be as left as possible in line with flush with this peg. Then you're going to move down while you're holding your sword upward. You're going to make sure you're all the way down against this rail. And that's when you're going to lay the bomb and release your spin. Then you're going to move up here into this little nook. You're going to make sure you're flush against this top peg. You're going to move all the way to the right and hold your sword out to the right. You'll see that the bomb is about to explode, and once it starts exploding, I'm going to walk left into the bomb exploding. And this is going to be the same as the diver down trick, sorry, not the diver down, same as the specky clip. You want to walk into the bomb explosion after it has started, so make sure you don't walk too early into the bomb. Once that happens, all you have to do is use the hook shot, and you'll clip into this position. When you're here, you want to either tap or press left. It doesn't matter how long you press left, you just need to press left. And then you'll hold up, and you'll walk and fall into this fountain, okay? Now, there's some additional notes, actually a lot of additional notes. If you hook shot here, and you press up without pressing left, you will soft lock. Be sure you do not do this. You cannot use the mirror. You'll basically be stuck here, and you'll have to save and quit. So make sure that when you're clipping into this pot, you tap left first before you're walking upward. Otherwise, you'll soft lock. Now, there is another way to do this. Optimally, you can, while the hook shot is going, you can buffer a clean up plus right diagonal. So you'll see that I'm pressing both up and right here. And that allows you to skip this tapping left. So optimally, this is a few frames faster. Just be sure that you get a clean up and right diagonal, and you're not pressing only up, because otherwise you'll soft lock. Alright, now we have to talk about the slot 0 altitude issue. I was alluding to this before in Swamp Palace, but here it is actually a concern. So you have to watch out if this mini Moldorm drops an item. If you collect this item drop, whatever it drops, whether it be a rupee or a heart or a bomb, if you collect it in midair, it will probably cause your bomb setup to fail. So you'll see that I'm doing the exact same setup, so laying the bomb here, going into that nook, and you'll see that the bomb knocked me at a different angle. So now I'm out of position, and the clip will not work. So the way to avoid this, well, number one, you can just not kill this Moldorm, but if you do decide to kill this Moldorm and it does have a drop, you can just not pick it up, or you can wait for it to settle on the ground. So if it's fully on the ground, it is safe to pick up. And then you'll see, and then the trick will still work. It is worth noting that even if it's in the air, if you grab it with the hookshot or the boomerang, that is also okay. So feel free to grab those drops using the hookshot or the boomerang. Now, it can be really dangerous if it spawns a fairy, because fairies are always in the air, so they never settle to the ground. So this will definitely mess up your bomb setup for sure. So if you get a fairy drop from the mini Moldorm, try, if at all possible, to hookshot or boomerang the fairy to collect it. That will make sure that your bomb jump setup, or your bomb setup still works. Collect it in midair, not going to work. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe if the fairy despawns in midair, which probably, it's always going to be in midair, it will also cause your bomb setup to not work. So try to collect it with the hookshot or boomerang. Okay? Now, if you... Okay, we're going to move on to some fun timing comparison. So, you might be wondering, hopefully this doesn't happen to you, but if you do end up in this spot where you collected this drop in midair, you might be wondering, okay, am I just screwed now? How do I fix this? Do I just give up on doing the Harapot? Well, there are a couple ways to fix it. If you collect this drop in midair, you can reset your altitude value and make the bomb jump work again by mirroring. You can do it by walking into this stairs here, or if you don't have the small key, you can go into the stairs over here. Or, of course, you can also just give up on Harapot and just do the dungeon the vanilla way. So I have some timing comparisons about what might be the fastest way to fix this issue. So we're going to collect this drop in midair and we're screwed. So we have 4 different options. We're going to go into this key door over here. Over here, we're going to reset with a mirror. Over here, we're going to reset by climbing to the rest of the dungeon and then falling down again. And then on the bottom right, we're going to just skip doing Harapot altogether. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit. And you'll see that the fastest way to get the Harapot again is using the mirror. If you have the mirror, you definitely want to do that. And then by the time it takes to get to this last chest over here, you'll see that here are the timing comparisons. So you'll see that if you use the mirror, that is going to be the best option for resetting your altitude value. If you don't have the mirror, then if you have the small key, go through that small key door. If not, the 2 other options are equally fast as far as I can test. So that would be climbing through this room and either falling. Oh my gosh, screen is black. Why is the screen black? Really? Huh. That is not gonna be on my end. Or is it? Alright, technical issues. Oh, the screen's not black anymore. Alright. We're back. We're back. Alright. So these are the timing comparisons if you mess up your altitude value and want to restore it. So ideally you want to use your mirror. If you can't, go through this door. If not, you can either climb into this room and then fall down to the pit again, or you can just do Hera the vanilla way, and that's going to depend on your execution. Okay? Now, I have another scenario for you, which is, what if you want to do Harapot, but you're missing a bomb? That is going to be a tricky scenario, because obviously you need a bomb to do the setup. Now, it is true that there is actually a bomb for you. If you go up into this room underneath this pot, there is a bomb. So the question is, if you come into Hera and you need a bomb, is it faster to go and grab that bomb and then fall down and then do Harapot, or is it faster to just do the dungeon the vanilla way without Harapot? So let's look at these timing comparisons and we'll try and find out. So here we're grabbing the bomb, falling down, and then doing Harapot, and then racing against the vanilla way through the dungeon. And who's going to win? Who's going to win? Place your bets. You'll see that it's about the same. So you can kind of pick whatever you want. I will say that grabbing the bomb is a little bit harder to execute in my experience, but could depend on your execution. So these ways are about equal. So whichever way you want to handle that situation. But ideally, of course, you enter Hera and you already have a bomb on hand. Now, I did want to cover a alternative setup. This is going to be the super speed or hook speed setup for Harapot. I don't want to spend too much time on this because the bread pot setup that I showed that uses a bomb is going to be much more consistent and easier for most people, but I just wanted to mention this. So for this setup, you're going to arm hook speed on these stairs, and you're going to activate super speed. You're going to go to this corner over here, and then you're going to move into this position. You have to find a lineup for your sprite. You'll see that the shadow, for example, is lined up with this line on the tile. If you want to move 1 frame to the right, this position also works too, but I would recommend the one on the left personally. And then you're going to move 8 frames diagonally down and right, so you need a clean down and right diagonal. You can buffer this using a menu buffer if you want. Of course, you can't use the sword buffer because you can't use your sword while you're in the state, but if you want, you can use a pause buffer. And then you're going to hookshot after exactly 8 frames. Now this is frame perfect, so you might have to try it a few times. and that's why I highly recommend using the other setup if you have a bomb. There's the same thing at 25% speed, so you see that I am doing a clean diagonal down right movement, and then 8 frames after, let's get to that position in the video, and then 8 frames after, you're going to hook shot, and then you're going to enter the pot just like before. You're either going to up right or you're going to tap left and then hold up to enter the pot. Okay? Any questions about Herapot stuff before we move on to a different topic? Looks like no. Okay, we're going to move on to something completely different. So instead of talking about tech and routing and stuff, we're going to talk about prize packs. Right, so we're going to talk all about prize packs, and I know this is a really intimidating diagram, but this shows kind of how prize packs and enemy groups work. So this diagram, this really big diagram, shows the prize pack assignments for the vanilla Link to the Past game. So you see that there's different groupings of enemies, and you'll see that each grouping of enemies is assigned a different pack of prizes here, okay? Except for this top one has no drops assigned to it. Now, in your seed, in your particular randomized seed, the prize packs for the groups will be shuffled among each other, right? So they're not randomized. It's not going to be a random one. There can't be any duplicates. They're just going to be shuffled among each other. So there's still going to be a one-to-one mapping, but that mapping is going to be randomized, okay? Except for this topmost group. This topmost group, so the one with like the bats and the freezors and these hands, they will never drop anything. So if you've never seen a freezer drop anything, that's because it's always going to be no drops. Now, whenever you kill an enemy out of any of these groups, it has a 50% chance of generating a drop from its prize pack. So you basically flip a coin, and if it's heads, you're going to get an item from the prize pack. Except for this special group, this one in green, for whatever reason, this one has a 100% chance. So any of these enemies, whenever you kill them, they will always drop something. So if you notice, for example, that whenever you kill any enemy in the Zora domain, or any of these Hinoxes, they always drop something. It's not a 50% chance. And it's also important to note that it's tied to the enemy group, not the prize pack. So whatever this prize pack is, it'll be 100% for these particular enemies. Right. Now, how the prize pack actually works. Each prize pack has its own counter that starts at the beginning on the leftmost item, and it tracks the next item that's going to drop from the pack whenever you roll heads on that 50% roll. So, for example, in this case, if I defeat an enemy, so let's say I defeat one of these mimics here, it's going to give me the first item in this pack, so that's going to be a small magic. And if I defeat another enemy in the same pack, so it could be a different enemy, so let's say I'm defeating a green Igor here, it's going to give me the next item, so it's going to give me a green rupee if I roll heads. And if I go and defeat, say, another one of these mimics, I'm going to get the next item, which is a heart, and so on and so forth. And of course, after it reaches the end, after it reaches this last heart, it's going to wrap around to the beginning back to this small magic. So normally when you're playing the seed, all these prize pack counters will be, tracked independently. So, for example, if I kill the next Igor, I'm going to get a small magic if I have that 50% chance. And if I kill a berry, for example, one of these blue jellies, I might get a heart. It is important to note that when you save and quit or hard reset your game, all of these will reset to the first item in the pack. Now, there are some special rules because this game has a whole bunch of different quirks. The first rule to note is if you kill an enemy with a dash, no matter what enemy it is, so even if you kill a guard or anything like that, it will never give you any items from these prize packs. You'll just not get any drops. And also, if you freeze an enemy and then use the hammer to defeat them, it will always use this prize pack, and that is going to be with 100% frequency. So it'll always default to this prize pack no matter what it is. So if you freeze a guard and then hammer a guard, it's not going to use this prize pack, it's going to use this one, and it's always going to drop something. So whatever prize pack is assigned to this particular group of enemies is what it's going to use. So the same one as killing the Pengators or the mummies. Right, now there are some prize packs that are particularly useful to track. Now, as someone mentioned, it might be a little bit difficult to track all of these prize packs as you're playing, so usually people might only track a few ones, and here are some recommended ones to maybe keep track of. So this prize pack in particular is important. This one with the blue and red jellies and these Stalfos. This one can be very useful in Ice Palace. in case you need some extra magic, because if you look at the view screen before Cold Stare, there are these 3 red jellies here, there are these 4 blue jellies here, and in the next screen there are these 2 red jellies, and there are also 4 blue jellies beneath this liftable rock. So if these enemies are in a prize pack that give you any kind of magic and you need some extra magic for Cold Stare, you can definitely feel like farming these is a viable strategy. Okay. This prize pack can also be helpful to keep in mind for GT Gauntlet, because all of these enemies in the Gauntlets are part of this prize pack. So these Zazax and these Stalfos. And so this is a different prize pack. So this is the one with all of the normal guards here. Also contains the snakes and the Wizrobes. This one can occasionally be useful for early game bomb farming. So there's a bunch of guards on the way to Lost Woods or Kakariko that might be useful. And this can also be relevant because these enemies over here are on this screen with the pyramid. So in case you flub a Ganon fight, you might be able to go and kill these 4 enemies and get a magic drop. Now, this is the special group of enemies that always has a 100% drop rate. So it has these Hinox enemies here that have a 100% drop rate. This can also be useful for having a magic refill, for example, a failed Ganon fight. And it can also be useful in Zora's Domain if this, for example, is the Rupee pack. So let's go back. So if it's this Rupee pack right here, and you know that that Rupee pack is assigned to this this particular prize grouping, where is it? Then you can use that knowledge to help you farm Zora money. And remember, these guys always drop an item, so you won't have to roll a 50% chance. They will always drop an item. So if they're in the Rupee pack, that can be helpful for Zora money. Alright, now we're going to move on to talking about not prize packs, but fixed prizes. So these are going to be stun prizes, tree pulls, bush crabs, and all of that stuff. And the reason I call them fixed prizes is because they are always the same for your seed. So what happens, the way this works, is at seed generation, we're going to use, what happens is the algorithm uses a probability distribution to independently select items for each of these different prizes. So there's the stun prize, there's different tree pull prizes, there's different bush crab prizes, and there's also a fish save prize, which some of you probably have never heard about. Now you'll note that this is not an equal distribution. So if you've ever noticed that, for example, your tree pulls happen to be hearts more often than they are, bombs, that is actually because there is a probability distribution. So for example, it is very rare to see fairies as your stun prize because it only has a 1 out of 63 chance. So that's why more often than not you'll see something else like hearts or maybe a single bomb as your stun prize. Okay. So this is just showing some sample data for a particular seed. It's worth noting that because each of these prizes is generated independently, rolled independently, you can have repeats. So for example, in this particular seed, the tier 1 tree prize is the same as the tier 3 tree prize. So don't be surprised when you check your tier 1 tree pull and your tier 2 tree pull and they might be the same item. Okay, so you're not going crazy. These are independent of each other. Okay, so let's talk about the stun prize first. So if you stun the enemy with the hookshot or boomerang or the ice rod and then you kill it, it will always drop the stun prize at 100%. So for example, in this particular seed, my stun prize is the green rupee. You'll see that I freeze an enemy and kill it, and it will drop the green rupee. And this actually overrides the dash kill rule. So even if you dash kill the enemy, it will still drop the prize if you stun it beforehand. Okay? Now, I did mention this before, but if you use the ice rod and then the hammer, this is not one of the fixed prizes that I mentioned before. Remember, this will always generate the next drop from that this particular randomized prize pack. So this functions a little bit differently. Okay, I used to think that Ice Rod Hammer was a fixed prize, but it is not. So that is potentially a common misconception. Okay, next we're going to talk about tree pulls. You've probably seen people do this where you pull on certain trees. They're not always trees, but you pull on certain trees and it will yield 4 copies of the item from the current tree pull tier. Okay. So you see that there's one here in below Pyramid, and your current tree pull is determined by 2 different things: the number of enemies that you've killed so far, and whether you have taken damage yet. So if you've killed 0 enemies so far, you will always get what we call a tier 0 tree pull, which always gives you nothing. So if you haven't killed any enemies and you try to pull one of these trees, you'll always get nothing. If you if you have killed between 1 and 3 enemies, you're going to get the fixed tier 1 tree pull prize. If you've killed 4 or more enemies and you have taken damage, you get what we call a tier 2 tree pull. And if you've killed 4 or more enemies and you have not taken damage, then you'll get a tier 3 tree pull, okay? So if you've killed 1 to 3, you'll get a tier 1. If you've killed 4 or more, it depends on whether you've taken damage or not. Now, it is worth noting that these values do not reset across a save and quit. Of course, if you hard reset your game, they will be reset, but they don't reset across save and quit. So for example, for all of you uncle routers that go and check these 2 chests in the secret passage first, you'll often note that sometimes these guards are killed, and then once you kill these guards, after you save and quit, those enemy kill counts will actually persist. So keep that in mind if you're going to kill some of these guards and then save and quit and then do a tree pull. These guards are going to keep on persisting and adding to that counter. Okay. There are some special rules that I will note for completeness. For whatever reason, taking damage from pits doesn't actually count as taking damage for tree pulls. I don't know why, I have no idea, but that's just how it is. And also, for killing enemies, there are some really unexpected things that can count as quote-unquote killing an enemy for this counter. One is throwing one of these fake Master Swords in the Lost Woods. That actually does count as an enemy KO, because I guess it just uses the same code routine or something like that. So this can actually be relevant for if you're farming for a tree pull in the Lost Woods. Something else that counts is if you are looking at a bush crab and it despawns on the screen, that actually counts as killing an enemy, even though you actually didn't do it. And finally, my favorite, if you have an Octorock that shoots a projectile and it explodes, that also counts towards the tree pull counter, because I don't know. But that's just how it works. I'm going to briefly notate different tree pull locations. This information is available on other resource sites as well, but there's one that's very common outside of Hyrule Castle. There's also this one that's very common, these 2 that are commonly pulled. This one's on the way to Lumberjack Cave, and this one is in the Lost Woods. And this one hardly ever gets used, but it is in one of the houses in Kakariko. And the tree pull locations actually change after beating Aga, so you will see these ones less often, but the tree pull locations do change to this set. And finally, in the Dark World, there are some additional tree pulls. This one might be useful, as we showed before, because this one is right outside Pyramid, so if your tree pull prize, for example, is full magic, this might be a nice way to get magic for a Ganon refight. And also the Foot of Turtle Rock is also a tree pull prize. That might be useful if you, for example, have the mirror and you need some magic to activate this medallion. Okay, next we're going to talk about bush crabs. So you've probably seen these before. They don't always have bushes, sometimes they have rocks. But basically what happens is after you expose the crab, it's going to start spawning the fixed main crab prize. So it's going to spawn multiple copies of this prize. And for this seed, it's going to happen to be the blue ruby. And it's only going to generate a new one after you collect the previous one. So if you don't collect the first one, it's never going to generate any more. So you have to collect that one first. Now, if it spawns 7 drops, the 7th one is actually going to be a different prize. So you see, in this case, in my seed, it was an 8 bomb pack. So the 7th one, if you can get it to generate 7, it's going to be a different one. And then finally, when it despawns, it also is going to generate one more final copy of that main bush crab prize. Alright, now we're going to talk about the fish save prize. This is totally going to be relevant in your seed, but probably not. So to do this one, you're going to lift and carry a fish to deep water. So you're going to walk and carry it, you're going to be careful not to get hit by these enemies. It's okay to throw the fish onto ground temporarily if you need to go ahead and slash these enemies to get them out of the way. It'll just bounce around. Finally, you want to go ahead and throw the fish directly into the deep water. And it'll give you a message, and then it'll toss you the fish save prize. Okay? That probably won't come up, but it is there, and I wanted to include it for completeness. That's all I have to say about prizes. But we're going to move on to bomb bushes and rocks. This is going to be similar information, but you're going to get these a different way. Alright, so certain bushes and rocks in the overworld have a 50% chance to give you a bomb when you lift them. For example, you'll see that I won both of these 50% rolls on this example, and I got bombs in both of these particular locations. Alright, I do have this resource. There is a link URL below in case you're watching this later and want to look at it as a reference, but there are a lot of different locations. I think I have some video clips showing the common ones, so you don't have to necessarily memorize all of these, but just for completeness, I'm going to show all of them, and there are a bunch of them in the Dark World too. A lot of these aren't super useful, but some of them are, which I'm going to go over. So there is this one below Link's house. If you have the glove, you can lift this, and there's a 50% chance of getting a bomb here. You'll often see people do this if they are just exiting Link's house and need a bomb, or if they're fluting away anyways, and they just have nothing else to do with their time. There's these spots that I showed south of the Grove. These can be useful if you're entering Kakariko from the bottom and need some bombs for Kakariko. And north of Hike, so this does require a glove again to lift this rock, but this left-hand rock here has a 50% chance of having a bomb as well. In the same screen, if you have the Pegasus boots, you can bonk into these rocks, and this one actually has a 100% chance of every time it'll give you a bomb. And this can be really relevant in Casual Boot Seed if you need one or more bombs for Kakariko. And of course, if you want extra bombs from this rock, you can always walk to an adjacent screen and back, and this rock formation will be there again. Finally, there is also this southwest corner of Kakariko. This little bush right here has a 50% chance of generating a bomb. And also, if you go and open this little hut with a bomb, there are 4 bombs here underneath each of the diagonal 4 pots. So that can be a useful way to stock up on bombs if you need a bunch. There's also some arrows in here if you want. These left and right pots just have 3 limits. And if you're near Ice Rod Cave and you need a bomb for Ice Rod Cave and you have the gloves, there's a 50% chance over here on this upper right rock. Okay, this one doesn't come out super often, but if you're at Hype Cave and you realize that you have no bombs, you can go south here and lift this rock here, and this has a 50% chance. It's also very close to your screen transition, so if you fail the 50% roll, you can always try again pretty quickly. That is going to do it for bomb bushes and rocks. Next, we're going to talk about some other random drops that you can get on the overworld. There's this one that a lot of people probably know about already. This tree outside a pyramid, if you bonk into it, will spawn a fairy. So this can be really useful if you need a fairy, for example, for a Ganon fight. If you are trying to bottle this fairy and you have the bug net on hand, one trick you can do if you have the boots is to do an item dash. So that's pressing Y and A at the same time. You can bug net dash into this tree, and that will automatically catch the fairy on the first frame. That way you won't have to chase the fairy down and accidentally run into it. Now, something that I didn't know until pretty recently is if you don't have the boots, you can also use Quake. So if you use the Quake medallion, it will also cause the fairy to be released, because this game is crazy. Unfortunately, you cannot use Quake to collect any of the other actually important stuff like the library ledge item. That would be very crazy. But it only applies to these trees. Alright, on Death Mountain, a lot of you already know about this one probably, but if you bonk into this rock formation, there is also a fairy here. And north of Kakariko, there is this tree here, and if you bonk into this tree, you get a full magic refill. And in Super Bunny Cave, if you lift this pot here, I'm going to zoom in here, if you lift this pot here, there is a full magic refill. Usually this isn't super relevant, but if you find yourself without magic to use for a TR medallion activation, this can potentially help you. Finally, north of Village of Outcasts, so this is the Fortune Teller's Hut, if you bonk into this rock formation, there are actually 2 fairies here. And then outside of Pod, on the overworld screen here, this left-hand tree of this group of 2 also spawns a fairy. So that can be useful if you are feeling kind of nervous about going into Pod, maybe you have to do some dark rooms or something like that. Finally, the West Death Mountain portal, so this is the one right above Spike Cave. If you need some extra health for Spike Cave, if you could slash these cardinal bushes, so the left, right, up, and down ones, they have chances of giving you fairies, hearts, or green rupees. So this time I was really lucky and I got 3 fairies. but you'll see in this clip, I was not as lucky, and all I got was 2 hearts. And sometimes you'll just get green rupees, and sometimes you'll just get nothing. But that can be a way to try and look for some extra health if you need it for Spike Cave. Okay, that is all I wanted to cover. That, of course, is not an exhaustive list. There are many trees you can bonk into, but I tried to cover just the ones that I thought were particularly relevant. All right, are there any questions about any of this stuff so far before I move on and fix my cropping? So I'm going to talk about some dark room tricks. So when you're navigating a room in the darkness without a lamp, one thing that I like to do is use the HUD on the top of the screen as a visual reference, because that's kind of the only thing you can see here. You can't see any of the level, you can see your sword sparkles, but you can reference this HUD on the top of the screen, and you can use that for lineups. I'm going to show a few here. It is important, if you're practicing this, that in the randomizer and in the practice hack, the HUD alignments are different. This confused me for a long time, but make sure you don't make this mistake. So if you're practicing the practice hack and you're trying to get these HUD alignments, be aware that all of these icons and text icons and everything are going to be aligned differently. So make sure you're practicing on the right version of your ROM. Okay, here's one for Dark Cross chest, and you'll see that this chest in Dark Cross, if you're in the darkness, it is directly lined up with the arrow icon and the arrow count here. That can be a way you can hold your sword out, line up with the arrow icon, and you'll be directly lined up vertically or horizontally with this chest. Okay. There's an alternative strat in this room where if you have the boots, you can bonk off of this right-hand corner torch here, and you can walk north, and you'll be also lined up with the chest. Okay. I have one for Pod in this turtle room. This can be a very dangerous room to do in the dark, but if you have the fire rod, it can help as long as you know where these 2 torches are. And it can be a little bit difficult to find. Some people know the timing by heart, but if you don't, this left-hand torch is kind of lined up with the right-hand 2 figures of the rupee count. So you can use that to try and get a lineup. And for the torch on the right side, it is sandwiched between the left 2 hearts of your life total. Okay, so you can use that, especially if things go wrong in the turtle room and you're kind of wandering around in the dark, and you have a fire rod, and all you want to do is try to light one of these torches. You can maybe use those visual references. I have a special strat that I use for the Eastern Palace Igor room. So this is the room where you need to kill the green Igor and get the small key. So if you come in here without a lamp, what I like to do is I like to hold my sword held facing upward. This will also work if you don't have a sword. You just need to hold B so that you're in the strafing mode. You're going to enter the dark room. So I have it with lights on just so you can see what's going on. So you're going to walk up out of the doorway, and this is important because you can't use any items while you're inside the doorway. So you need to walk far enough up so that you can use items. Now, you're going to shoot an arrow, and if it hits one of these enemies, you're going to try and shoot more until you get an arrow to stick in the wall. So you can see your arrow in the darkness here, right? Even if you don't have the lamp. Once that happens, you're going to strafe right so that this arrow is lined up between the rupee count and the bomb count over here. And you'll see that if you position the arrow in the wall over here, you will be directly lined up with the Igor that you need to shoot. And that way you can confirm that the Igor is there by shooting an arrow into the Igor, and then you can proceed to complete and execute the rest of the room. Because normally, locating the exact horizontal position of this Igor is the main hard part of this room. So this is kind of a normalized setup for finding that horizontal position. I will have some other notes for getting through this dark room. A lot of people stumble on actually getting through this pot in this room in the dark. It seems like something really simple, but there's a few special rules that you have to remember with getting through this pot. The first rule is, if you're flush against this north wall, you cannot lift this pot. So you'll see that I'm trying to press A as much as I can, but I cannot lift this pot even though I'm facing left, and that is because I'm all the way to the north of this room. So make sure this doesn't happen to you. If you're all the way to the north of the room, you'll need to move a little bit downward, and then you'll be able to lift the pot, because you can't lift it when you're all the way north. Another thing that I've seen happen is if you're doing a diagonal northwest movement, and you happen to be facing left, you won't be able to lift the pot because you're facing the wrong way, right? So you'll need to turn up by pressing up without pressing left, and then you'll be able to lift the pot from the bottom. Something else that I've seen happen is getting caught on this torch here, because it kind of seems like you might be getting caught on this pot, but it's actually this torch here, so make sure that doesn't happen to you. Keep that in mind. This can especially happen if you get knocked around by the Igors and other enemies in here, so make sure you don't get caught up on this torch, and keep on trying to lift the torch, because the torch is definitely not liftable. Alright, so I have some Darkroom strats from Misery Mire Basement. There are a lot of different strats, I won't cover them all, but there is a cool strat here where if you have the boots and the hookshot, you can dash downward and bonk off of this railing. Then you're going to turn left and hookshot to the pot, and you'll be lined up with the pot. Right, now, before you try to lift up the pot, make sure you push left to ensure that you're flush against the pot, because sometimes when you hookshot, you end up a few pixels away. But once you push left, you'll be able to lift the pot, and then you'll be right there to lay your Samaria block. And try as best as you can not to get messed up by these shooter fireballs. There is also a HUD lineup that you can use for this switch. It is kind of lined up with the right-hand edge of the bomb count, if you're trying to look for this in the dark. Finally, if you're trying to do spooky action glitch in the dark, which props to you, but if you're trying to do that in the dark, sometimes it can be hard to tell whether you are in the right kind of alcove or column here. Sometimes you might not be sure whether you're in the leftmost one or this third one over here, and you really want to be in the second one here. So the HUD lineup for that is your sword sparkles or whatever item you're using should be lined up between the arrow count here and the key count here. So that way you can confirm exactly where you are in the dark. That is everything I have about dark rooms. I have maybe one or two very quick things that I want to share, but I want to leave some time for questions in case there are any. About anything that we covered so far. We covered Specky Clip, Swamp Palace Routing, Hera Pot, enemy prize packs, bombs, and lots of overworld stuff, as well as darkroom strats. If not, I'm going to move on to some very small random timing differences and movement patterns. I wanted to just cover this one because it's a pet peeve of mine. This is talking about the order in which to check these two checks in Hyrule Castle Secret Passage. So I have a timing comparison here. This is assuming you're going to save and quit. This is common if you're doing an uncle route start. Of course, the order in which you collect these two chests doesn't actually matter that much if you're planning on walking out and walking to Hyrule Castle, but if you're planning on saving and quitting, it actually does matter, and I'm going to show that in this timing difference here. So on the left, we're going to go to Uncle first, and on the right, we're going to go to the secret passage chest first. And which one do you think is going to win out? Which one do you think is going to be faster? If you're smart, you'll already know. And you'll see that if you go get this secret passage chest first, and then go to Uncle second, and then save and quit from there, you actually end up saving almost a second. So this is pretty free. Definitely do these checks in this order. I think some people get this wrong because they underestimate exactly how long it takes to get through this door transition and back again. So going back again and having to do this door transition twice ends up being a little bit slower than walking all the way here and back. As a plus side, if you do take this right route, it does give you some extra opportunities to throw these pots at these guards in case you want to check their prize packs or farm for a treat bowl. Okay? It's just a really small thing, but I wanted to point that out. Okay, my final topic is to talk about a little bit about movement speeds. So I just wanted to give some illustrations. I'm not going to give an in-depth overview of movement techniques. If you want that, I think that was covered in a separate previous Boots Camp episode, but I did want to give some visual illustrations and some additional notes. So while Link is walking in a cardinal direction, he moves at 1.5 pixels per frame. But it's important to note that while you're holding your sword out, you move slower. So you only move 1.25 pixels per frame, okay? And same thing if you're moving diagonal. So when you're moving diagonally, Link will move 1 pixel horizontally and 1 pixel vertically every frame. But when you're holding a sword out, you are going to move slower. So you're going to move slower by about 20%. So it's a little, might seem like a little bit, but you can actually really feel the difference, especially if you're trying to line up spin slashes on, for example, Ganon's 4th phase. So keep this in mind. This can also come up when you're fighting Moldorm with, for example, a fighter sword, because the fighter sword does equal damage to Moldorm, whether you're doing a spin slash or a or you're just walking around and doing regular slashes. Some people will always advise to do regular slashes with the fighter sword because of this reason, where you can move faster without your sword held out. Now, there are also other advantages to using spins on Moldorm. I won't really get into that, but keep this in mind as you're thinking about movement. Now, when you're hookshotting, the overall speed is going to be 2 pixels per frame. The hookshot extends at 4 pixels per frame, and you get pulled at 4 pixels per frame, so overall it's going to work out to be 2 pixels per frame. It's important to note that this is exactly the same total pixels as walking diagonally, right? So this is 1 plus 1, which is 2 pixels, and hookshotting is exactly the same overall movement. So hookshotting can never beat out diagonal walking. It can only be equal to. Of course, it is going to be faster if you're just walking in a straight line, though. And finally, for dashing, it takes 30 frames to start up a dash, and then you move 4 pixels per frame. So that's going to be the fastest for extended portions of movement. I have this diagram set up to show you in real life what this looks like with an actual room layout of what the optimal path is for walking to various points in a screen. So within this green little region here, the fastest way to get to anywhere in this green region is to walk, okay? So you don't want to dash anywhere in this green region. If you're trying to move to anywhere far out here in the blue region, then you want to do 2 dashes. So for example, if I'm trying to get here, I will dash to the right and then dash up, or vice versa. And for these red regions over here, you're going to walk the short way and then dash the long way. So you're going to walk first and then dash, okay? So this is kind of a visual reference for exactly how many tiles worth it makes it to be more worth it to dash rather than walking. I do have sort of a janky version of this put together with hookshot. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this, but basically the main idea I wanted to show here is that if you're comparing hookshotting and dashing, this is kind of the distance that you want to cover. So it's about, I think, 7 tiles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's like 7 tiles or less, then hookshotting is faster, but if it's 8 or more tiles, then dashing is actually going to be faster than using the hookshot. Okay, now it's time for the lightning round. This is going to be a little bit of fun. So for this lightning round, I'm going to have time comparisons of 2 strats over here. So I'm going to start with this room in Hyrule Castle Escape. And your goal is to predict or figure out ahead of time and guess which one of these strats is going to be faster. For example, in this case, on the left, we're going to walk left, dash across this room, and then walk right into the stairs. And on the right side, we're just going to walk diagonally. So which one do you think is going to win out and be faster? And of course, if they're relatively equal, we'll also note that. I'm going to play these clips. I'm going to show these at a reduced speed so you can exactly see the timing difference. And you'll see that in this case, it's about the same. Dashing is maybe a frame faster or so. So in this case, I would highly recommend just doing the walk. Even if the dash is a frame faster optimally, if it's on the order of a few frames of difference, I would always recommend taking the easier and more consistent option because remember, it's really hard to dash optimally, right? To dash all the way until you're just about to bonk into this wall is really hard. Okay? So for this room, I would always recommend walking. The next one is going to be this room, also coming in Escape. Do you think it's faster to dash to these stairs or just to walk? There was a comment from chat for guard RNG, but I was, for the previous clip, I was talking about the case where you are coming back, so there's no guard there. Alright, so for this room, you can see that dashing maybe saves a couple of frames over walking. So I think this one is going to be up to you. It kind of depends on your execution confidence in this dash, and also whether you're really trying to go for, like, escape PB, or you're just trying to take things easy. Alright, next is going to be this room. Kind of looks the same, this is also an escape, but this time we're coming downward, walking out of these stairs, and coming out of this door in the south here. So do you think it's faster to walk or dash? Turns out in this case, that dashing is actually going to be noticeably faster, so it's going to be maybe even like 20 frames, 15 to 20 frames faster. And that might be deceiving because it's only dashing this different distance visually, but you're actually dashing all the way into the door transition. So you have to remember that the doorway has some length as well. So dashing actually makes the door transition happen a little bit quicker because you're dashing all the way into the door transition. So for this screen, you definitely want to dash. Okay, next we have this screen in Desert Palace. Do you think it's faster to just walk diagonally into the screen transition on the bottom? Or do you think it's faster to dash to the right and then dash downward? Try to remember that image that we saw earlier. here is the timing comparison. And you'll see that for this one, dashing is definitely faster. So definitely do these 2 dashes here in Desert Palace. All right, this is the next screen. So is it faster to walk diagonally into this key door, or is it faster to dash downward here and then dash alongside this wall into this door? Here's the timing comparison. And I'll note that you can actually set up a key dash. So you'll notice that in the dash case here, I actually was lined up with this left-hand wall and did a dash turn, so I can actually key dash all the way into this door. But you'll see that even if I do that, all of that setup, it still works out to be pretty much about even with walking. So in this case, I would probably recommend just walking because it's much easier. All right, now we have this screen, which is in the Kakariko Well. Do you think it's faster to just walk over to the stairs here, or do you think it's faster to do a dash to the right and then walk downward? What do you think? All right, you'll see that doing a dash here, I actually got it to be slower. So I would always recommend doing this walk here. I didn't test this, and now it is worth noting that I didn't do these frame by frame, which I actually don't think you should because you're never going to get a frame perfect dash. But I did record these a couple times to see what was the best that I could do, and I couldn't really get the dash to beat out the walk in this case. So try not to do that. Okay, next. We're going to talk about Thieves Town. We're going to this chest here, and there's a similar chest later on. Are we going to dash to the chest, or are we going to hookshot to the chest? Which do you think is faster? Alright, here it is. You can see here that it's about the same. Dashing is maybe a few frames faster than the hookshot. For this case, I would probably recommend hookshotting because dashing is liable to bonking. And of course, if you bonk into a chest, that's really bad. So I personally always recommend doing the hookshot here. But if you have like tasks, skill, reflexes, then maybe go for the dash. But of course, if you bonk, it's going to be really slow, so be aware of that. Alright, now we have this room in, this next room in Thieves Town. Is it going to be faster to walk diagonally down and pick up this pot and activate the switch? Or is it going to be faster to walk to the right here and then dash downward to lift the pot and hit the switch? Let's see which one wins out. You'll see that in this case, it's about the same. Okay, so in this case, I would recommend just walking, because walking is definitely going to be easier here. In this case, my dash was actually a few frames slower. Okay. Next up, we have this room in Thieves Town with all of the different conveyor belts. Should we hookshot to this pot and then walk into the door, or should we just walk up and to the right and diagonal into this door? What do you think? Here it is. You'll see that hookshotting is actually noticeably slower. Not significantly slower, but it is by, maybe about 7 or 8 frames. So if you do have an optimal walking path here, it is going to be faster to just walk rather than hookshotting to this pot. It is a little bit tricky because you have to make sure that you use these conveyor belts to your advantage. You want to take a very specific walking path so that you walk along the right conveyor belts here to push you towards the stairs rather than away from the stairs. So it's not as simple as just holding up and right through the door. But if you do that, you'll win out over hookshotting every time. Alright, Hookshot Cave. Is it worth it to dash all the way to this first pot, or should we hookshot to this first pot? What do you think if we're collecting these 4 chests in Hookshot Cave? Alright, you can see that dashing is noticeably faster here, and there's also another advantage of dashing, which is that because we can cut our dash short, we can actually hookshot at a much lower position to this pot, this second pot over here. Whereas in the hookshot case, we have no control over how far north we go, so we have to go all the way to this pot here. And so we're going to be put in a better position for this second hookshot south if we dash. So definitely you want to dash every time here in Hookshot Cave. Alright, same question, but here we're in Swamp Palace. Should we move out of this doorway and dash, or should we hookshot to the chest? What do you think? This one is maybe a little bit tricky. Okay, this one, turns out that dashing is also faster here. So you want to dash to this chest, not hookshot to it when you have the choice. Okay, now we are in Misery Mire. Do we want to just walk diagonally down to this door? Or, alternatively, do we want to hookshot to this block and then dash downward? What do you think? Here it is. We're going to hookshot and then dash downward versus just walking diagonally. And you'll see that walking diagonally is actually faster. So even though it looks cool and makes you feel fast because you hookshot and dash, just walk diagonally. And you also note that even though it looks scary because you have to walk right past this enemy right here, this enemy doesn't actually start moving until a few seconds after the room. So you'll always be able to walk diagonally past this enemy before it starts moving. So RNG isn't going to be an issue here. Alright, now there's this screen in Mire. This is going to be a very short clip, but should we just walk down to these stairs here? Or should we hookshot to this little railing on the left and then go down the stairs? What do you think? Here it is. So here it looks like hookshotting is going to be slower, unfortunately. So even though this hookshot feels cool, just walk down the stairs. It's going to be faster. Alright, now we're in GT. Here we are collecting the treasure chest on the right-hand side after coming out of the stairs. Are we going to walk to the chest, or are we going to hookshot to the chest and then walk around it and open? This time, hookshotting will actually let you save about 5 or 6 frames. So hookshotting to this chest is totally okay. But now that we've opened this chest, how do we get to the chest on the left? Do we hookshot to it, or do we dash? What do you think? Turns out that dashing is faster in this case. And it's actually by a noticeable margin, so maybe around 7 frames or so. So you want to hookshot to the right chest, and then dash over to the left chest. Right, here we are in the Moldorm room in GT. Do you think it's faster to walk down to the edge of this platform and then quick hop off? Or is it faster to dash all the way downward? Which do you think is faster? Is this distance long enough to make it worth it to dash? Here's a time comparison. You'll see that dashing is indeed faster by maybe about 0.2 seconds. So you want to dash out of that door and hop off of this ledge. Alright, that does it for the lightning round, and that does it for everything that I have for this Go Mode podcast session. I want to give a huge shout out to Go Mode podcast team for letting me run this session. If anyone has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I see a question, is your movement slower when holding an object like a pot? And that is a very good question, and that is true. So if you're holding a pot, you will walk slower than if you are just walking normally. I don't know offhand whether it's the same speed as if you're holding out your sword. Maybe someone can throw that answer in the chat, or maybe we can look it up afterwards by using the practice hack. But you definitely move slower. I do know that when you are in the... I do know that when you're in Ice Palace, things are a little bit weird, because ice physics are very weird. And if you are holding a... Let's see, what's a good place to show this? I think, for example, let me go off all these enemies. So if you're holding a pot here, oh my gosh, then if you're holding a pot on the ice, I don't believe it slows you down. So that is something to note. And there is also one small note I'll make, which usually comes up in this room. If you're holding a pot, normally you walk slower, but if you, for whatever reason, if you're walking, oh my god, if you're walking on the edge of a pit, you don't actually suffer this speed reduction. So you'll see that I'm still walking pretty fast here, but if I move to the middle of the path, I'll slow down a little bit. Maybe it's hard to see, but just trust me. Any other questions? And we talked about a lot of different things today. Again, thank you for watching. Thanks for paying attention. Hopefully some of this info has helped. I also want to give a shout out to all of the Link to the Past Rando and Link to the Past content creators. There are a lot of really helpful resources that other people have made in this game. I did post a link to my bite-sized Rando playlist, which I'll post again in chat right now. So this has a bunch of videos if you want to learn about various things, such as, for example, there's one about what's the fastest way to exit out of Sanctuary from a save and quit. Do you think it's mirroring or dashing? So I'll leave that for you to catch up and watch those videos. There's also detailed videos on timing comparisons, for example, why we route Swamp Palace with Specky Clip the way that we do, and various other strats and timing comparisons like that. But of course, I did want to shout out everyone else who uploads videos, because when I was competing myself in the Mentor tournament 2 years ago, all of those videos on YouTube and all of these helpful references really helped me as I was improving, and I hope they can help you as well. That is going to do it for this episode of Boots Camp.